It always comes to this. More nice shit. Guys, back again to another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I showed off the big green tentacle, the light green, like neon, with like blue accents, some dark blue on accents as well in the mouth of the tentacle. On my right side, done by Terry. Previously, the white and black on black versions of all the tentacles were done by Rick, but I'm working with Terry on the tentacles as Rick is still working on my left sleeve. And that's all healed up now, so I'll go ahead and show off how that healed here before going into what Rick and I did today. So, yeah, that's all peeled. It's probably a little dry right now, I don't know. I haven't lotioned it since this morning. So again, the same as the other tentacles, what tends to happen with these is they take on more of a light tone rather than staying sort of the color they are. They stay very bright, but they become a lighter version of what they were, where they're going in on all that white that was done there originally. So I've had some people ask me lately, like especially since I've been covering these tentacles that were white with color, is it advantageous to color white over black or just go straight over black? And my experience with it is, when you put it in over white, it does tend to filter down a shade or two. So it's not necessarily better or worse, it's just different. Whereas when you put it straight over black, you get more a darker variant of the color. When you put it in over white on black, you get a lighter variant of the color. So it depends on what you want, right? Like, it definitely does have an effect, but it's not necessarily a positive or a negative, it's just different. I think probably I prefer straight over black in terms of like the actual color you get, but I'm sure if you were to do multiple sessions of color on white on black, you would get a truer version of the color. It's just if you're only going to do it once, it does have this look where like it almost has like a, sure, it's lighter, but it's more of a faded color than it is. Even here you can see straight on black versus straight on or over white on black. It has more of a duller kind of muted, I wouldn't say muted, but just lighter version of the color, where it's not quite as true to the bottle per se. Anyway, yeah, it healed up easy, and happy with how that did. And we'll be on to the other big tentacle on my left side this week. Sorry, screwing with my camera again here. I had another session with Rick here today, obviously. We moved down further with that same texture that we created last week. And we also did the inside. It was going in easier this week. And Rick has indicated that he'd like to continue this texture up here a little bit more too. This stuff was done recently, so when we're all healed up and ready to go, we probably do it already, but at some point we'll kind of extend that texture up a little further. But it does look really cool. I really like how that's coming out. And now that we have that base of color in there and established very well, we can go in and add dark detailing and some light highlights as well. And having all that black around the eyes and all the more solid pink tones in there now really busts out that green and yellow in the eyes more. I think we should do another pass on this centerpiece in here, the nose or the breathing hole there. I think that would really add some more. We'll probably get to that another time over the coming weeks. Next week we're going to be continuing down further onto the lower, it's not quite the forearm, the connecting point between the forearm and the bicep, but hopefully we can get quite a bit done again. We got a good chunk this week, lots more than last week, but even the section we did last week up here has been healing a little bit It healed quick, but it's been very, very dry looking and kind of ashy. So it went in a little harder and it's healed a little different, but it looks good. It healed well. It's just been a bit of a dry heal for some reason. No matter how much I lotion it, it stays pretty dry. So that's not typical for me. This sleeve has been probably one of the biggest tattoo projects that have ever been done. And people are asking me more and more in comments here, what do I think of a possible limit to where this won't take anymore? And I don't think that such a limit actually exists. I think that if you fuck someone up constantly and you push the skin too far all the time, then you'll probably have a limit of some kind where scar tissue is developed to a level where it can't saturate anymore. But I think you'd have to really, really fuck someone up to do that. And I don't think that that's a result of like continual tattooing forever. I think that's a result of not listening to the skin or pushing someone too far even a few times, right? Like if you have bad infection in a spot, you'll get scar tissue right away. Whereas if you never have any problems healing, then the skin really doesn't get beat up. So I would like to stress that you shouldn't be causing scar tissue every time you tattoo someone, and if you are, you should adjust something. Maybe you're working too long, maybe you're working too hard, maybe you're not in the right layer of skin. You know, you got to pay attention to each individual client too. For example, when Terry tattoos me, he can go pretty hard because I have pretty thick skin, versus one of the artists at the shop that he works on here, Ashlyn, has very soft, thin skin, and he can't work on her nearly as hard or as long as he can on me. So it does vary person to person, and the longer you work with a particular client, the better you learn their skin as well. So by now, the guys I'm working with know my skin very well and what it can and can't put up with, and so that affects how well I heal as well, because these guys know exactly what they can get away with when they're working on me, you know. Whereas Terry could black my back out in a single session twice. He could probably only get away with a quarter of that on Ashlyn before causing serious harm to her. So it does change a bit person to person. Some artists I don't think are very good at adapting to the client they have, but I think that's part of the job, and you should learn to do that early before you get into big projects and end up hurting someone. You have to respect the skin you're working on, and not everybody has the same skin. Some people don't take care of their skin at all, and it makes it terrible to get ink into them, for example. A lot of the people in this city have very dry skin because we're in a dry climate, and a lot of people drink pop in place of water and stuff like this, or otherwise just in pretty bad health, and it makes tattooing them hard. So you have to work longer and harder per square inch of their body and get less done because of the fact, you know. So it's always different. Every time you sit down with a new person, it's going to be different. So I wanted to briefly mention I went to the local tattoo convention here in the city, and we get artists in from kind of all over the place. We got some artists from the States, but mostly artists from surrounding cities in Canada and some different provinces of Canada. And a lot of these people have seen me on social media. I had a lot of people come up to me that follow me on my Instagram or have seen some of my YouTube videos or TikTok and things like this. And one of the initial reactions is just shock that I'm Canadian, that they would have expected I was from somewhere much farther away. And then it goes from that to quickly kind of looking me over and going, oh, I didn't think that would look that good in person. Like, it seemed like the default was to expect that all of my work was heavily edited and ramped up for social media or something. And especially a lot of the people at Tattoo Convention are either tattoo artists that are working at the convention or tattoo artists that are kind of looking at the convention, or otherwise collectors that are looking for a new piece or something. So most of the people that go to these things are at least in some way aware of tattoo culture And it seemed to be the prevalent thought that my work was going to look a hell of a lot worse than it does in person, and that it's mostly a effect of social media editing or something, that it looked as good as it did. And they were very, very surprised. And most of them, they kind of glanced at the Rose sleeve and were sort of, yeah, that's cool. But the minute they looked at Rick's sleeve, it was like a study or something was happening, where it's like looking at all the detail in here, and how well some of this color shows up and how intricate everything is. And they were just so fascinated by it, and wanting to see more of my work, and asking, you know, what's my stomach looking like and all this shit now. And especially because my social media is kept so far behind, a lot of them hadn't seen like the tentacles, stuff like this, and they're just amazed with how clear everything is looking. And I'm not tooting my own horn, this is just a fact of the matter. Everywhere I went, I was getting stopped at that thing, kind of constantly, by artists that have seen me, and they're asking what inks we're using and what needles and stuff. And it's nothing special. It's, honest to God, it's all just stuff off Icon, right? Like Cheyenne and Quadrant needles, and we're using nothing but Fusion ink for the colors. And a couple of the artists were saying Fusion should be sponsoring this shop, and they should be flying me out and doing videos on me, because goddamn. But realistically, we could be getting the same results with any ink for the most part. It's just, these are the colors that Rick has always preferred, and since Rick is the senior artist here, everybody kind of comes down using the same, or comes on using the same inks as he prefers to use. The only thing that we got in that Rick didn't know about was Panthera XXX, and I just thought that would be good to bring in, because all the black workers use that for their blackouts. So that was the only ink that wasn't advised by or already used by Rick before we started this project. So, but yeah, everybody was asking what the ink was and all this, and just really expecting it to look worse. And it's kind of sad, if you ask me, that we're at a place where, and I get it, because there is a lot of hyper edited shit on Instagram, like a lot of people showing day ones and not following up and showing you how it healed. But it's sad that the default expectation is that this shit all looks terrible in person, when in reality, it all looks better in person. And especially on something that's as elaborate and as detailed as this sleeve, there's no real good way to speak the volumes that you need to show appreciation for what this is. And a lot of people just watching these videos and stuff at home, they see this sleeve and it's immediately more impressive. But if you're to get hands-on and like really close up on something like this, and especially for other artists that understand the time that something like this would take, even on normal skin, and then to go, oh, holy shit, we've now had 67 sessions on just this version of this arm. And this arm has been tattooed well over 100 times overall. It's one of those things. I was asked recently how long I think I've spent working on just this sleeve, this version of this sleeve. And we're in between 250 and 300 hours on this. And we'll probably be at over 400 on just this limb before it's done. Like, that's realistic. And that's more than some bodysuits take to do. I know there are some black and gray bodysuits that have been done in, between 100 and 200 hours. And this sleeve is already almost double that just for this one arm. So, yes, it can be done, and this is what I kept stressing, but the number one thing is patience, right? This can't be done quickly, was the overall thing that I was communicating to the people who expected this to look much worse than it does. And yeah, like, that's always my message here, is it's not about magic artists, it's not about magic ink, it's not about anything like that. It's just about having very patient people on both sides. I don't think these things can happen. I get a lot of artists now will comment, I wish I had clients like you coming in, and I'm not taking all the credit at all. I wish there were artists that were this patient everywhere too, because I hear from both sides of the coin, right? And especially like the convention, you got people going in and they're going in for like a one-shot sleeve and stuff like this, and this is just a totally different animal than what most of this culture and community is moving towards. And it was interesting though. It was I wore the mustache for it, and it was a good time. You know, I had if Remy's going to do a convention, I got to go all out, right? So, and I don't usually like that stuff. I don't love the spectacle of tattooing. I'm more of an introvert when it comes to these things. So, if I was gonna do it, I was gonna go all out, you know. And I had a fun time, but it was curious to me that so many people just expected it to look like shit, and were very impressed that it didn't. So, I guess job well done. I guess. On the topic of the mustache, I've got another one coming. Another custom one coming, and it's going to be real fun. I can't wait to show that off on the channel here. Some people will hate it, some people will love it, as always. But, yeah. So, I'll be talking to you guys here in a few days when I'm working on the last of the 7 or 8 tentacles on my torso with Terry. And then we'll be on to touch-ups and second passes for that. Anyway, have a great day. Talk to you guys again soon.